show. Section 2.3 of the last communication between the PURC and the ECG stipulated a number of things. We've got to the point now where the ECG board, together with 8 members of the board, are being pointed as and could face some prosecution. Well, we get into that matter this morning together with Kwame Jantua, a lawyer and energy expert. Mr. Jantua, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning. Good morning to your listeners.
Right. I'm sure you followed the communication between the PURC and the ECG, which has come now to a head. What do you make of the interaction? Because some say it has been frosty over the last few weeks and over a month. Let's start from there before we get into the details of what is happening now.
Thanks, man. I really don't understand it. I don't understand how 2 major stakeholders in our electricity production are at loggerheads. It makes a nonsense of it, as far as I'm concerned, because they should be able to work together. They should be. But maybe it's the politics. It's the politics that has gotten into it. Because PURC, who is a regulator, ECG, who is a distributor, should have a good relationship, and this shouldn't really be played in public. There must be an understanding somewhere.
And that is what is mind-boggling, because, like you said, they are like, sisters or brothers, and they are fighting in the open. It's an open fight.
Siamese twins. What is causing them to fight in public? What is it? The regulator is PURC. The technical regulator for PURC is Energy Commission. ECG is a distributor. ECG distributes electricity from grid transmission. Grid transmission takes it from the generator, the VRAs of this world and the like. So why should there be this spat in public? I don't understand it, if it's not because there is politics in there somewhere. Now, looking at it, PURC, where is their source? Yeah. They are not under the Ministry of Energy, are they? They are under the presidency. And if they are under the presidency, they would take their instructions, if for nothing at all, from the presidency. Their responsibility is to advise the president on all energy matters. And when they go, when there's something happening, when there's shortage of fuel, there's shortage of feedstock, they go to the president and say, we are short of feedstock here. We would need to be able to get probably crude in, light crude in, to be able to power XYZ generators because we don't have enough gas. Give us the authority to do it. And that is where they get the authority from. So if ECG has used certain amounts of money to procure fuel, is that ECG's responsibility? Who gave them that responsibility to do? And if you look at the write-up that the fine that has come, it's got to do with the handling of the cash waterfall mechanism.
Right.
That's where it is. Now, when you look at the PwC's report on the cash waterfall mechanism, certain things weren't put right. Certain things weren't put in place. On this cash waterfall mechanism, there was a meeting, I think somewhere in February, with the president, the vice president, and stakeholders, where ECG, to my understanding, indicated that there were certain generation plants who went under this cash waterfall mechanism, and they needed to make sure that they were under the cash waterfall mechanism. So, from my information, instructions were given to PRC, go and streamline this cash waterfall mechanism so that it covers everybody. What went wrong? What went wrong? But I find it difficult to. I find it very difficult.
As do I.
We definitely have. Look, the challenges we are going through has got to do with finance, has got to do with feedstock, has got to do with maintenance, has got to do with debt. These 4 areas are the challenges that we are facing. Why can't we sort it out? Why can't we? And now they brought a fine out. So far as I can see, PURC doesn't want a situation where a finger is pointed at them that they didn't follow the law. You brought out a mandate for ECG to follow. They didn't follow, and this is what the law says. So they are going by their regulatory powers. However, they are under the presidency. And I expect, and if it doesn't happen, I will be so surprised that things will be called to order. The amount of money we're talking, there is no chicken feed. 5.8
million Ghana cedis. But a quick one, even before I get to the practicality of, I do know, correct me if memory serves, the board chair resigned recently, right? It's one of the ECG's board chair, if it isn't one of those institutions. And this service, it's up till about March the 18th, those who had served on the board up till March the 18th.
From 1st January to March the 18th.
Okay, right. But the first question about purchasing fuel, the ECG, as I have listened to them in the past, have made mention of the fact that that was done on the back of some agreements with the finance ministry. Who was the finance minister then? That is why I'm saying to you, Benjamin, that the politics playing in there is creating the challenges we are facing. Because I don't see how Samuel Dubik Mahama would, on his own volition, do these things if he's not instructed. I know Dubik. Instructed by whom?
Person, and he speaks his mind.
Instructed by whom? He's there as boss of the ECG to act on behalf of the state, on behalf of the president. The president put him there to do the right thing and to go by the letter of the law. So on behalf of whom would he be taking these actions?
But who put him there? That instruction should have come from somewhere. And as I was saying, I don't think Dubik Mahama will, on his own volition, decide, I'm going to use X amount of money to buy fuel. Who instructed him? Who? Was it the Minister of Finance then? Was it Ken Ofori-Atta then? Who instructed him? And the sad thing is that nobody wants to come clear. The only one I see who has come clear is the Gridco letter, non-compliance with loan management instructions from the National System Control Center. That letter, when you read it, it tells you the challenge. It tells you the challenge. So why aren't they being open to us? Is it because they decided sometime 2015, 2016 to brand a particular government that they were incompetent and useless because of dumsor? Is that the reason why they cannot also tell us that, look, we are going through, if not full dumsor, we are going through some partial dumsor? Can they not say that because of politics? And because of politics, people are suffering? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. Come out clearly. Say it. The president should be able to come out clearly. Forget whatever you've said in the past. It has happened. You can't change it. But where we are today, we need to make sure that power is working. We need to. So if we're going through a problem, bring it out. Let's talk about it. Be transparent. Be accountable to it. It doesn't make sense to me. We should stop this kind of politics we play, especially with energy. I would have even thought, where we are today, government to come out and say, look, energy is a national issue. It's not a party issue. It's not a political issue. It's a national issue. Let's bring our heads together and see how we sort this thing out once and for all. When they came in 2016, 2017, we were under IMF. They made it categorically clear that IMF ain't going there again. Did they make it a national issue for us to discuss how not to go there again? We are there now. Now, energy is a national issue. Why can't we sit as political parties, party in power, opposition, sit around the table and say, this particular issue has haunted us since this Fourth Republic. There needs to be a stop to it. How do we stop it? Let's all put our heads together and stop it, because whatever government comes in, we have recognized that we get dumsor, some degree of dumsor, even erratic supply of power. spoils people's equipment. So we are not serving the Ghanaian right. So let's try as much as possible to put things in place and serve the Ghanaian right. Those are the ones who vote us into power, and we are here to serve them. So let's try our possible best to bring a solution that is long-lasting, that we don't go back in here. No, pay politics. Doesn't make sense.
The cash waterfall mechanism bit, you've already spoken about that. Are you one of those who are of the opinion that the ECG has committed very flagrant abuse of the system? I've listened to Samuel Dubik Mahama in the past talk about fulfilling what they have to fulfill, at least to some extent, paying the IPPs and all of that. The PURC disagrees. Where do you stand on that before we come back to the substantive sums involved?
When you look at the PwC report in review of the cash waterfall mechanism, they talk about discrepancy, declarations versus disbursement. And what they observed there are certain things that ECG weren't able to do. If you read it, if you have time, I can read it for you. And based on that, ECG hasn't been too clear with the cash waterfall mechanism. They haven't been. And this is why I think the president calls all stakeholders to come together and see how we sort this out. What happened to that engagement? What was the result of that engagement? Because PURC was supposed to streamline it. Did that happen? And if that happened, what was the result? Definitely, certain generation plants, they've divided into tier 1, tier 2. Some tier 1 haven't got their payment, but majority of them have. When you come to tier 2, the Ministry of Finance is supposed to pay a certain quantum of money to some of the tier 2 operators. I think this Gridco. Has that been paid? You see, Benjamin, we should put this entire thing in context because of the fact that we are now under IMF. We should be able to sit down and put it in context because the energy sector is draining a lot of the finances we have in this country. And if we are not prepared to sit and talk and play politics with it, how are we going to resolve it? The cash waterfall mechanism was put in place because before, the government could see that they weren't distributing the collections and revenue to the other stakeholders properly. So this was put in place for that to happen. Why do we now have ASEM with it again? Why? And nobody wants to talk about it. The president doesn't want to take responsibility and talk about it. Yes, he has called them, but what is happening? A lot of people last night slept in darkness with this heat. And you think that is fair? A lot of people wore crumpled clothes to work this morning. Is it fair? And you come back to us. They are coming back to us in this election to vote for who we feel can run this economy. Coming back to beg us, and you don't want to serve us? You don't want to serve us with information? Just give information. I remember during the last dumsor, President Mohammed's time,
right.
There was somebody in...
if you could just hold on to that thought for me before you go back in time, just briefly, I'll be right back to you. Let's bring in former Power Minister Kwabena Donkor. He joins the conversation. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, sir.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. Now, I know you've been sharing some of your reflections on these developments, but the latest coming through of the PURC saying that the ECG boss, together with 8 members of the board, are going to have to personally pay for some of these directives that have been flouted, and that there could even be a jail term in consequence for Samuel Dubik Mahama. What's your reflection on that?
Well, I'm excited by that. I'm excited because when a regulator begins to bite, a regulator begins to play its role as a regulator, then you can keep the politicians out of it. The biggest challenge in governance for this country has been regulatory failure. And therefore, that is why I'm excited. board members, and it is so important, must understand that they take responsibility. They don't just take certain allowances, etc., but they take responsibility. And so it is appropriate, it is right that the board members be personally held liable for flouting the directives of the regulator. My only issue is with the quantum. And for me, even if they are fined 10,000 cedis each, it will still serve the purpose that in corporate governance, the board is ultimately responsible, and not somebody sitting anywhere in Jubilee or anywhere directing, or in any ministry directing that instructions or directives from regulators should not be honored. And that is my excitement. I want to see a lot of our regulatory bodies play their role. When they play their role, politicians will concentrate on policy so that the regular interference will not happen.
So
and that is the basis of my excitement.
You feel it is a win for corporate governance, but like you said, the sum of money involved, 5.8 million Ghana cedis. Where are these board members? And that is not to say that they or they may not be capable, but in terms of their work and then the sums of money and the economy where it is, I mean, is that practical?
It is. They have a right to appeal. They have a right to appeal. And I believe if they appeal, they may have a reduction, a considerable reduction. For me, the principle is so important. Until now, every blame has been put on the managing director. But the managing director only implements decisions of the board. And so when the board is collectively held responsible, it is a step in the right direction. They can appeal, and when they appeal, I believe that the quantum can be reduced considerably. It is the principle. Even if they are fined 1,000 cedis each, it goes on record that the board is ultimately responsible for the flouting of the directives of the regulator. That is so important.
So it's about the signaling. It is for you.
State enterprises. I am excited that board membership will no longer be a token of political appreciation, but that board members will actually work.
I see. So for you, the signaling is important. In there, the 9-member board, we have the 8, then we have Deputy Energy Minister Herbert Krapper, but he won't be affected as his tenure, from what we gather, falls outside the period of the regulatory orders.
Precisely.
Kelly Gajekpo, who resigned as board chair some 3 weeks ago, will also be affected, technically speaking. And then there is the case of Samuel Dubik Mahama, and then Majority Chief Whip Frank Anodompre, and 6 other individuals, making up the number who have to cough up this fine. Without which not, there could even be jail time for some of them, from what we gather, up to about 2 years, especially for the boss of the ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama. This is a very serious business, but from where you sit, what are you hoping? It's not just about the signaling. In governance, when a signal is sent, it must result in something. What eventually should this result in for all these institutions, especially those working in the public sector? Hello, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, are you with me? Dr. Kwabena Donkor, are you with me? Okay, it may appear that we may have lost him. We'll try to reconnect with him because of the rains as well the connections are not the best they can be. Let me throw that same question to Kwame Jantua. Dr. Donkor has spoken about signaling. Do you feel this does enough in terms of signaling? The sum involved, is it practical? And what does this do for the public service?
Remember, Benjamin, remember that initially this was going to be charged to ECG.
Right.
But PURC indicated that because of the financial situation ECG finds itself, they've transferred it to the board. Really?
Yes, but that's why I'm asking, is it practical? These are individuals. Look at the Economic Times.
The fact that they've been able to transfer it means that there could be a solution to it from the presidency. Remember
from the
that
presidency.
PURC comes under the presidency. And I believe, if for nothing at all, the president can, if he wants, he can call all the sides together and sort this out. And maybe it might end up in a very small fine just to make sure that PURC isn't embarrassed.
When you say the PURC isn't embarrassed, what do you mean?
I mean, in terms of they have indicated to ECG that because you didn't go according to the rules and regulations, we are fining you X. And if it so happens that the presidency decides that this thing is a no-go, but to make it look as if, to make it seem that you have executed what it is that you had put forward, let's reduce the fine to a nominal figure. It is possible that can happen. Or it could happen that they will eradicate it and find a way to sort this mess up, sort this mess out. So I don't really see this happen. I don't really see the board members paying this amount of money. I will eat humble pie if it happens, but I don't see it. Because really and truly, in as much as PURC are trying to execute, their mandate, I don't see in the life of me why it should get to this. I don't see it. I really don't see it. Because when you speak to ECG, they say they work well with PRC. When you speak to PRC, they say, we work well with ECG. So why the spat? Look, if you permit me, let me read what the Pricewaterhouse report says on the cash waterfall mechanism. It says, and I quote, "We observe that the declared collections and corresponding allocations made by ECG were consistently different from what was actually paid. This, according to the CWM reports, were due to overpayments, underpayments to beneficiaries classified as Tier 2, Level B of CWM. So how did the overpayments and underpayments come about? How? What created it? What brought it in? Why were some overpaid and some not? Some were underpaid? Did they not have the right amounts of money that was owed? So what created that particular situation? It goes on to say, the CWM report does not state clearly why this happened. And the PURC notes that the CWM Standing Committee indicated how this defeats the purpose of the CWM.
Right.
We generally agree with this position.
My apologies once more for interjecting, because Dr. Kwabena Donkor's connection is not that stable. He's back. Let me just take him briefly, and then I'll wrap with you, and we're gone. Dr. Donkor, so you were making a point I missed. Your final words on this matter. What's the way forward?
The way is for regulatory bodies to be up to the attack. And PURC, in this instance, deserves to be applauded for having the courage to do what is right for both the industry and for consumers. The most important that
Dr. Donkor, we're still struggling to hear you. I don't know whether you could reposition yourself briefly and just go back to the start of your comment. I know
it's the network. Better now?
It is better. Please start again.
Yes. I'm saying that this is extremely good for corporate governance. This is extremely good for regulatory bodies. Regulatory bodies, whether in the natural resource space or in other areas, must be up and doing. PURC, by this thing, has indicated that regulatory bodies can buy. I want to have a put on record that the current managing director of ECG is done a yeoman's job in terms of collection. In terms of collection, I must put that on record. And I will also advise the board of ECG to appeal against the fine. And I believe when they appeal, some decision will be taken. The fine is, yes, on the high side for individuals. And I like the fact that PURC said they couldn't from corporate funds. If they were paying from corporate resources, it would mean you and I will be paying the fine. And that is excellent. We want to see more of this. We want to see reported by, importantly, we
okay.
Want to take responsibility. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, for joining the conversation. He's a former power minister. Lawyer Kwame Jantua, we have just less than a minute. If you could squeeze your final submissions into 30 seconds, I'd be grateful.
So they went to Parliament, was it last Saturday? Parliament says, bring out a timetable. PURC has said, bring out a timetable. Why haven't ECG brought it out? I don't think it's EDC's power not to bring it out. There must be some strings pulling somewhere. Because I know Dupik Mahama, he is a straight-laced person. And if he feels it is what he has to do, he will do it. Somebody is pulling the string somewhere. And we need to be able to identify why that is so. Because it doesn't make sense to any of us.
Thank you very much, Kwame Jantua, for having joined the conversation. Sweetie Abochi, so here we are, this power situation, timetable, and now it has culminated in this trade-off between the ECG and the PURC.